Today I'm going to be teaching you how to frontside blunt slide and the things I think about to make this trick a whole lot less scarier and make it easier to lock in and hold for a longer slide. I'll be going over the front blunts on a flat bar today, so if you want to learn how to do it on a ledge, this isn't the video for that. But if you're trying to learn how to front blunt on a rail or get more comfortable with them and hold them longer, then let's get into it right now. So it's a whole lot easier to learn how to front blunt on a rail compared to a ledge, because on a ledge you have to actually have the angle like this, but on a rail you have all this room to play with. I pretty much think of it as ollieing over into a back tail. So knowing how to back tail will help, but it isn't necessary to learn how to front blunt on a rail. But if anything, learning how to front blunt a rail is easier than a back tail because the rail is in front of you. You can face it and see exactly where you're going. You're not approaching the rail backside to get into a back tail. You can look down and see exactly what you're doing to get into it. So your foot placement is just going to be like a basic ollie. If anything, I have my front foot a little lower to the middle, but when I'm ollieing into the front blunt, I think about ollieing over into a back tail, but I try and rocket my ollie to keep my nose higher, so then when I come back down into the tail, the nose is already higher and pretty much where it needs to be. So the angle isn't as important as what I once thought. I come at an angle about 15 to 20 degrees, but I've seen a lot of people stay pretty parallel and still get over the rail into a front blunt. But for me personally, I'll go at about a 15 to 20 degree angle. So once I'm meeting the rail and ollie over, I'm in that natural path to get up over it. So thinking about ollieing over the tail, I pop a rocket ollie, turn my shoulders first to get up over into it, and then I turn my hips second to finish off the turn and land into that tail slide. So doing the rocket ollie and picturing myself ollieing over into the back tail has made this trick so much less scary than what it used to be. And that's really the thing that made this trick a lot easier for me. Now to get used to that feeling of locking into the blunt, you can start at the end of the rail just like this. And once you master that technique of ollieing up over into the tail, you can start to move further and further back and slide longer. When you are looking to do a longer slide, I try and stare down the end of the rail and keep the weight over my left shoulder. Because if you truly ollie over into the tail and you think about it that way, your body weight wants to be on the other side of the rail. So it's a lot easier for you to drop off that side. But if you want to hold it longer, keeping your left shoulder open and looking down the end of the rail will help you keep your weight on this side of the rail and be more centered. So I'd say about 70 to 80% of your weight is in the ball of your foot, on the back foot. Your front foot is used as more of a guide to level out the board. But obviously it being a blunt or tail slide, your foot needs to have a lot of the weight on that to keep you locked into the blunt slide. So I'll get into a few more angles of the front blunt so you can see exactly where my weight is, how I look down the rail to stay on it a bit more. Because if you are transferring your weight over and you turn your shoulders into it, you're more likely to drop off of the rail or turn to fakie, which is fine if you want to go to fakie or you want to shove it out on the other side. But standing up tall, looking down the rail and keeping your weight over your left shoulder is really the key to holding a longer slide. But let's get into more front blunts from different angles so you can see exactly how this technique works more. So as you can see, my blunts aren't very blunty. It is more like an overtail to me. And I always joke about me not doing a front blunt, it's an overtail. But when I first learned front blunts, it was on a square rail. So I literally did ollie over into a tail. And then once I learned how to do it on a round rail, it was still kind of on the same level movement. I do try and do that rocket ollie and get it over into a blunt, but it always drops down and stays about midway from a blunt and a tail. But keeping those two tips in mind of doing the rocket ollie over into a tail, as well as looking down the rail and keeping your weight over your left shoulder, will help you get into the trick more consistently without it being so scary, and help you hold it longer for longer slides down the rail. The more you practice this, the more easier it's going to get, the more comfortable you're going to get at it, and then you can start to play around with some variations like turning to fakie, shoveling out, or even doing big spins out as well. But front blunts on round rails are so similar to a back tail on a ledge. If anything, it's easier. So let me know if you want me to do a video teaching you guys how to do back tails, because they kind of go hand in hand with each other. So let me know how you go learning front blunts on rails and if these tips help you. Let me know if you want to see that back tail video on ledges. Check out the last little trick tip video I did on slappy feeble grinds right here at this same skate park on the curb here, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.